Yes, Spurs fans, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. We're going to be doing another North London Derby preview. Of course, yesterday we were doing it with the fan show members, but now we have it back with our Irish contingent here, and we're trying to sort of muster up some confidence and some sort of courage before this weekend. Of course, international breaks will be over until about March period, so this is going to be a huge, huge slog of games and very important ones as well that tend to happen over this December, November, just winter fixture period. And we're getting back to football business with a big one, the North London Derby, of course. Colin, how are you, and how are you feeling ahead of
it? It's like a trip to the dentist. You know it's coming. You're not looking forward to it, and you can't wait for it to be over.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. It is a bit like an overdue cavity situation that I probably have to take care of. Jack, how about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat, but I think Dave was saying to me before that Ireland have given him a bit of hope that maybe some of these mountains can be climbed. So maybe we can do it.
Yeah, I think Dave is probably crazy enough, is the one going into it with maybe the best sort of confidence. So hopefully we don't hurt him with any of these questions today when it comes to the confidence and what we'll be dissecting around Tottenham Hotspur. Anybody that's joining us, please smash the like button, please. Also, as well, feel free to get into the live chat, ask us any questions. If you want to support the channel further, feel free to become a member. You can also send in any of your thoughts or questions via a super chat. Really helps out the channel. Alpesh, always good to see you. Harmless Potato as well. Scotty Heinem, the one and only Ian Ferguson, and Shem Tam. But we're going to make the best use of these guys' time tonight. They're giving up time out of their Thursday evenings, and we're going to get prepared. But first, we have a bit of news around Antoine Semenyo. I can't believe this is happening, but Spurs could, in fact, really be in the frame of signing the guy, according to David Ornstein at The Athletic this January, alongside Liverpool and Manchester City, of course. What angle could Spurs use, Colin, to outmaneuver maybe these bigger clubs and convince Semenyo to choose Tottenham Hotspur?
Yeah, very, very good question. My immediate reaction to that is wages. I think we're up against two very difficult opponents in terms of signing. The only thing that will go in our favor is you've got a lot of minutes available for a striker in that position compared to Liverpool and to Manchester City. So potentially, and if he likes Frank and he likes his mojo, perhaps he'll come for us instead of the other two. But I mean, I don't hold out hope against two big heavyweight opponents like that. It's really down to the player. I don't know enough about Semenyo to know whether he would value playing football more over being, first, second, third choice striker, whatever would end up being if he was at Manchester City or at Liverpool versus ourselves, where I think he'd be a fairly big noise. So hopefully if we can stroke his ego enough, he would certainly consider us. But it's an interesting opportunity for this new Daniel Levy-less Tottenham to flex their financial muscle that we all know that they have, and actually put their money where their mouth is, because they've been talking a lot about winning more often, and we can't win much at the moment because we lack a bit of firepower. So it'll be interesting to see if they can do it. But January, as we all know, is just very, very difficult to get business done, particularly at that high top end level, which, to be fair to him, he'd be a big name striker to try and move in the January window.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely would be probably the number one target for plenty of people. I mean, are you surprised to hear this, Jack, that Spurs could in fact be in contention to be signing someone like Semenyo? And same question, what can we do to try to convince him to come to us instead of maybe a Liverpool or a Man City like club?
I think just knowing Thomas Frank, from what I've gotten to learn from the sort of first 15 or so games, I think looking at Antoine Semenyo, if he was to build two wingers in a lab, he would build Kudus and Semenyo. So I can see that having them on either wing, it basically gives us. So they're not that similar, but they have similar attributes. They're both physical. They're both fairly good technically. Maybe Kudus is giving you a bit more of creativity. Semenyo's a bit more sort of directness going towards goal, getting shots off. But yeah, I think in terms of Frank, it just gives us another angle of attack. And as you know, he loves physical players. And I think we all saw the Bournemouth game earlier on. He gave Porro a horrible time. He just pinned him constantly. He couldn't get to him. I think the one thing I would say about Semenyo is I think the way the league is being played at the moment couldn't possibly be better for him. I think if there was maybe an adaptation in how teams started to play, I think, did you say Man City were linked as well? They're one of the three teams.
Yeah.
I think I don't see him as a Pep player, to be honest. I think he's got that sort of tendency to get a bit erratic with the shooting, and I could see Pep screaming on the sideline at him saying, we need to keep possession, and him kind of going off script. And he already has Doku going off script, but I think having a second player to go off that who maybe is shooting from 30 yards 2 or 3 times a game, I think maybe that's an angle we could look at to maybe say, look, this is how we're going to use you. We're going to give you freedom to express yourself in the final third. So I think we saw with Jack Grealish at Man City, maybe that was something that held him back, that lack of freedom to maybe be a maverick under Pep. I think he's quite rigid in the system, as good as it is. But I think and Liverpool obviously have had their own struggles, and you wouldn't know how much money they'll have to spend in January, and if their manager's even going to be there next season. With the results can't keep going like that, and he'll eventually be under pressure. So maybe you say it's a weird situation we're in, where maybe we actually have the more stability than Liverpool. So maybe that's an angle you could look at as well. But as Colin said, wages as well. So I think that's going to be the big one. If they're offering him 90 grand a week and City and Liverpool offer him close to 200, I think there's only one place he's going. He's going to play for all 3 teams. So I think it's money probably going to be the thing that sways him.
Dave, I did like how you framed this question of what angle can Spurs use to convince him while these other big clubs are after him. And what do you think of that? I mean, do you agree with the wages, or is there something else that maybe we could say or do?
Look, I don't think wages should be a stumbling block. We got one of the lowest wage bills in the Premier League. We can afford to offer this guy top wages. I think we can compete on that level, to be honest with you. I think, look, where we struggle is selling the project up against Liverpool and Man City. They can say, look, well, we're going to compete for Champions League. We're going to compete for the domestic trophies and the Premier League. And the players genuinely believe it. When we go and try and sell them that dream, they don't see it that way. They more so use us as a stepping stone, which, is a bit of concern. And that narrative is never really going to go until we really are truly up there competing on the board, showing every level that they're willing to sort of match put the money where the mouth is. But I think with Semenyo, to Jack's point, I think, we should be saying, look, you go and join Man City. Look what you've done with Jack Grealish. You know what I mean? Turn him into half the player. It's system-based. You lose a lot of the freedom. I think you will also lose a bit of Semenyo if you were to do that. So I don't think that would be the right move for him. So if I'm Thomas Frank or Spurs, I would be saying that to him. It's like, look, you're good at this. You're a player that likes to sort of play off the cuff. Be given that freedom, we can offer you that at Tottenham. You go into Liverpool or Man City, you're just one of a number, and if you do, like, they could just get someone else in the next window as well, which then puts you at jeopardy. All of a sudden, you're not playing, and then all of a sudden your career is on a downward trajectory. Whereas at least if you come to Tottenham, you are going to be the main man. We've a glaring issue, out on the left hand side, and you're the guy we want to come in and fix it. And I think we can offer him minutes, genuine minutes, and to come in and be one of the stars of the team and not just be one of a number. And I think there are certain things we can use in our favor in that regard. But also, I think we could use the Kudus friendship that they seem to be forming on the international tour. You always see these little videos coming out. And, I think we could use Kudus to maybe sort of get in his ear and sort of try and sell Tottenham Hotspur to him and stuff like that, and convince him that Tottenham is the right next step. So, look, there are avenues we can use. It just depends on how quickly Semenyo wants to rise to the top or not.
And then also Ornstein was saying, Dave, that Spurs are ready to do some business this January. What other areas do you feel like we need to strengthen, if we can, this winter window?
Yeah, look, I think clearly another fullback option, a left-footed fullback would be priority. We definitely need one of them. You could argue if with Yves Bissouma not really being a part of the squad plans, you could probably do with another centre midfielder in there. And look, if you can top it off with a striker as well as Semenyo, it'd be ideal. And there are a few knocking around. You'll have the likes of Vlahovic on the market as well. And plus, if you can make Paulinho Moani permanent, I think we'll go a long way, as well. There is a possibility here to have a decent January transfer window. It just comes down to the ambition of the Lewis family, really, and how badly they want to fix the problems. Now, according to David Ornstein, Tottenham are prepared to do a lot of business this January, which shows they're prepared to back Frank. They realise that there is glaring, obviously, holes in the squad, and that, they can go and improve it. So it's a big test for them. January window is notoriously a difficult window to operate in, but this one's slightly different because you do have the World Cup at the end of the season, and there are players not playing at big clubs looking to get out and play minutes elsewhere, and it is a window that we could probably use to our advantage.
Yeah, I mean, do you agree with some of the areas that we could strengthen there, Colin, and except for, of course, the Semenyo one that we've been discussing?
100%. A left-sided fullback, I think, is essential. I actually hadn't thought about replacing Basuma, which is probably a really, really good shout. And certainly, a backup striker option, so to speak, is probably the most glaring areas that we have weaknesses in at the moment. I think it'd be hard to add anything to what Dave has encapsulated very well in what he said. But I can't think of anything. Well, other than maybe a keeper. Sometimes I wonder about Vicario, and then I even wonder about Kingsley. I wonder if there was somebody decent on the, a more formidable, imposing keeper. Would that be an option, perhaps? But I actually think somebody has said it in the chat there that it is actually quite a good squad when it's up and running and healthy. So we don't have too many areas to fix outside of the striker options when everybody's fit. So once we get back to that kind of situation, we should be good. The problem is the here and now. So January is the most obvious time to try and at least get some sticking plasters and try and fix some of that.
Just quickly on that, on what Colin has to say about with the amount of injuries we have, and when everyone's back, it is sort of a decent squad. Spurs have a real opportunity, because the injured players can't be disgruntled if you bring players in ahead of them because they're not available, So we have a real opportunity to actually fill them positions. And then when these guys come back, have a real competitive squad where everyone's chomping at the bit, training hard, which will reflect in terms of on the pitch and stuff moving forward. And I think Spurs should use this opportunity because, if it was, say, a summer window when everyone's, fit and stuff like that, you bring in players. That's where players can very quickly go, well, look, I'm out of here and stuff like that. Whereas right now, with them being injured, we have a golden opportunity to bring in a lot of talent and the best man wins, sort of situation and cultivate that sort of competitive environment. And I think Spurs should use that to their advantage.
Completely agree with some of the areas that we could add to. Jack, is there anything that you would add to?
I think left back's a glaringly obvious one. I think getting someone like Anthony Robinson maybe, and I think Ryan Sessegnon sort of cemented that left back spot at Fulham. I think he's someone who just gets up and down well across, and I think someone like that would just be ideal. Probably get done 25 million now that he's lost his place. I think he's not perfect, but when you look at what Udogie does, just shows great energy. And Udogie maybe sometimes falls short with the cross, and I think that's something maybe Robinson could actually push Udogie to improve even more. But other than that, I think you kind of have to be careful because, as we know, we have 4 strikers on our books, and we're kind of going, well, we need another striker. We need to not have a situation where we have 5 strikers on our books and still going, we need another striker. Like you don't want to bloat the squad any further. So I think being careful about those sort of first team additions. Same with the goalkeeper. I don't want to get a goalkeeper unless it's the perfect option. Vicario's not perfect, but I think he's more than good enough to get to the end of the season and make sure you get the right person in the summer. Because I think we've done too much of that where we've maybe gone for 6 or 7 choices and then ended up having to try and replace them, but then can't shift the player, and which has resulted in us having, I think, 6 or 7 players in our squad that aren't in the Champions League squad. So I know most of them are injured, other than Tell. I think nearly all of them are injured, but we have to get Kulusevski back in once the group stage is over. Fingers crossed he'll be back relatively soon. So I think on top of any new signs, you have to actually make room for them. So I think that's another thing you maybe have to be careful of, because the last thing you want is where you have a player who you're consistently picking and he's not actually in your Champions League squad, or else you have to leave out a new signing or something. I think that's something you have to be careful of as well. So I think do a couple of small bits of business and make sure you get it right then in the summer.
Sales will be important too.
Yeah, if we can shift Basuma, that'd be ideal. But I think Basuma will go and shoot the lights out at some mid-table club and they'll think he's the best thing since sliced bread, because at the end of the day, if you put in 20 good performances out of 38 at a mid-table side, you're worth your weight in gold. If you do that at a side that wants to be playing the Champions League and competing for titles, you're not good enough. So I think that's he's one of those guys that I think he'll really do well if he moves somewhere else.
Mid-table Saudi club, probably more like it. Just back in the day, there used to be like 5 strikers on the books, but I completely agree with you.
Just quickly on the Semenyo thing as well, another thing to factor in, Rodrigo at Real Madrid is angling for him. Is it Rodrigo or is it Endrick? One of the two is in.
Rodrigo.
for a move out of Real Madrid, this January, which might actually help our cause, which hopefully will sort of steer Liverpool and Man City towards trying to get that deal done, which then will hopefully open up a free path for us to go and get Semenyo.
Yeah, Rodrigo would be great. Semenyo would be great. A lot of people as well.
We won't get Rodrigo, not a hope.
A lot of people are also.
Although we did have a link with Real Madrid years ago, which we never ever utilized and got anything in return, which is madness.
Well, they can pretend to, maybe as a bit of a smokescreen, put Rodrigo's smokescreen, then go in for someone like Semenyo. So they have no idea. Just as well, Dave, just something that you did put in here that I think is probably worth bringing up. We do have such a massive injury crisis. Could Thomas Frank consider recalling some lone players? Tyrese Hall, who's been smashing it, Vuskovic as an extra center back option in case something were to happen there. Mikey Moore, Donnelly, so many players out on loan that you would consider recalling.
Yeah, I think there's certainly an opportunity. If Donnelly isn't playing minutes at Stoke, why not give him the opportunity at Tottenham? We've never really given him the opportunity. And, when we've got glaringly obvious problems going forward and we're carrying a lot of injuries, one skill set that Donnelly does possess is that ability in the number 10 role to be able to create chances. If anyone goes back and watches him in the under-21 or for Leyton Orient, the way he manipulates the ball, the way it passes, and his vision, he can certainly add something to this team. I don't see why. If you can't get all of your business done in January, why not use some of these to help fill some of the gaps? Everyone's moaning about the quality of players across the front line. At what stage then do you turn around and give one of these guys an opportunity? Tim Sherwood done it with Harry Kane. All it takes is someone having the bollocks to do it. Someone like Vuskovic, maybe not necessarily a need for him right now, especially with Radu Dragusin coming back. Field in terms of energy, and he's very good on the ball, stuff like that. Mikey Moore, we're crying out for better wingers. Mikey Moore, I know he hasn't lit it up at Rangers at the start, but he's starting to find his feet and he's proven that he can sort of hang at this level. So there are options out there that if we can't get everything done in the January transfer market, to use some of the guys that we've got out currently on loan to bring them back and fill out some of them problems. And I think there's definitely some quality there that we can look at.
I think probably if we were to show a bit of ruthlessness is to bring in guys like we were saying to bolster this squad, maybe let the majority of these guys continue to develop out on loan, and then this January and this summer really look to push a lot of players out the door that we just know have not been cutting it, or we just know for a while now just aren't good enough, really. The Richarlisons and whatnot of the world, the Basumas. But let's switch gears a little bit here, Colin. Brandon Kolo Muani has returned to training in a specially fitted protective mask, maybe something similar to what Osimhen has, or I know Lewandowski had it at one point. And Spurs are assessing whether he can play in this North London derby, given the risk of aggravating the injury and potentially extending, his time on the sidelines. Should Spurs take this gamble to start him in the North London derby?
Yes. Yes. I think he's starting to look good. He certainly was getting opportunities. Disappointing he didn't put some of them away in the last game he was playing, or maybe last but one. But I think he was starting to look the part. I always think it's very dramatic as well when a player plays with a mask on. It always looks extra cool. I would be definitely lining him up, because I can't really see how we'll have anybody with the kind of nous to put the ball in the back of the net better than he might, unless Richarlison has a game, of his life. But at the moment, Richarlison is more of a battering ram than anything else, whereas there's a bit of class about Muani. So if he's fit and well and willing to go, he should be out there.
It's only your face, right? It's not that important of a body part.
If you're wearing a mask, jeez, God.
Yeah.
The rugby lads do much worse. He'll be fine.
Rando Kolo Osimhen or Rando Kolo Lewandowski, Jack? Do you play him? I mean, I think it's a huge headache going into this game, and if he is available, I would.
Yeah, if they're confident there's very little risk of him aggravating the injury, I would. The fact that it's a North London derby, maybe I think pushes it. You're willing to push the boat out that little bit more. But in the back of my head, I'm just waiting for him to catch a shoulder to the face and his jaw to snap in half, and he's out for 2.5 months, and he has to go for surgery. That's the Tottenham way. So I think that's always the concern. But yeah, I think with the striker situation, with how good Arsenal centre backs are, I think maybe Gabriel being out of the game is a bit of a boost. Maybe you don't feel it's as necessary. But yeah, I think if the medics think he's fit, as much as maybe we don't have much faith in them, just I guess pick him or even at least have him on the bench as an option. But yeah, I was listening to Kish from Lily White Lab talking last night, and he said about going with the back three and having Kudus up front. I actually didn't mind that idea as a bit of an option, either in a front two with Richarlison or them as a lone nine with Xavi and Odegaard behind them. I think that's definitely an option if they don't back Colin Wani's fitness. I don't really want to see Richarlison or Tell starting up front on their own, I think.
But they're both going to. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think if Colin Wani's not fit, I think you either have to go Kudus up top or a front two. I just think they're going to get one of them is just going to get bullied if they're up there on their own. They won't make the ball stick. I think you need someone with a bit of physicality that can actually make the ball stick. I think that's quite important for this sort of game, because we're going to be under the cosh probably for 80% of it. So I think having that out ball, someone to win free kicks, get you up the pitch, I think is really important.
I think Colin Wani's actually been all right. There have been plenty of games when we have just launched the ball up top to him with no hope, at all of being able to bring it down, and he actually has done it successfully on more than one occasion. I think his hold-up play has been better than the rest of the strikers, and he is willing to sort of make those runs in behind to stretch the back line when need be. But Dave, I mean, do you risk Colin Wani's face for this game? Do you risk that jaw?
I think so.
I think so, especially given the magnitude of the game, right? It's a North London derby, and to be honest with you, they're dirty fuckers. When they're going up for a header, they're going to leave an elbow trailing and stuff like that. They are going to try and catch him and hurt the guy. So it's an absolute huge risk. But to be honest with you, I don't even think it comes down to fitness. It just comes down to the pain barrier. Look, these masks are made nowadays that they will protect them. It just comes down to how much pain is he feeling, and can he concentrate on the game, or is the pain too much? I remember when I was younger, I played GAA. I was playing a few years above, and I got, I went in for a shoulder and I got caught in the jaw. I didn't break it, but it's very, very sore, very, very sore. So I can understand what sort of Colin Wani is going through. But I mean, look, Harry Kane done something similar, right, against Arsenal with his broken nose. He scored, and then one of the most iconic goals in the North London derby, one of the most iconic celebrations everywhere. He sort of ripped off the mask. So for me, I don't see why we couldn't get Colin Wani out there. If he's on the grass, and on the training pitch, then why can't we put him out there at the weekend? I think it's needs must, to be honest with you. If we select Richarlison, does anyone have any sort of hope that we're going to put away that chance if we create one? No. You select Matisse Tell, anyone have that hope? No. Dane Scarlett, huge gamble. So I think we're in a position where we actually don't have a choice at the end of the day. We're in a period where we need points now. We were sliding down that table. The table's getting closer, and it's a need must now for Thomas Frank. This is a real sort of momentum shift. If we lose this, it can, put you on a barren run for a few weeks. If we win it, it can give you that motivation and the momentum you need to really kick on. So I think this is where Thomas Frank earns his money. I think he needs to show a set of bollocks, loosen them skinny jeans, and, play Colin Wani, to be honest with you. I think it's the only option right now.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest headache going into this game was who do you play up front, knowing that almost all the options really aren't ideal, and getting this news that he has been training with the mask on. It's maybe showing that he's pushing to try to play in this game.
Which I like. It's hungry.
Yeah, and I think it was Jack or Colin that also mentioned, too, that he's been in good form, going into this. So it would be a shame if he were to be out for so long again, and he's had such bizarre injuries from the dead leg to now the broken jaw or whatever it's been, the fractured jaw. So I hope that he can recover quickly enough. And if he is available, I think he just solves a massive headache. There are some players, though, who have struggled, with that sort of type of headgear on. But I don't know. I just think might as well just find out whether he can do it or not.
I just think no matter what way we try and approach this game, whether it is the 4-2-3-1 or, the 5-3-2, the special operation that he employed against PSG that he might break out again tomorrow, I think Moani is essential. We need the ability to be able to hold up that ball against Arsenal to relieve pressure. Like, look, we have to understand the game, right? The first 20, 30 minutes, they're going to throw the kitchen sink at us at the Emirates. They always do. They throw everything they've got. In order to relieve that pressure, we have to have someone up there that can legitimately hold up that ball. Matisse Tell, can't do it. Richarlison is a bag of shite. The ball is bouncing off from left, right, and centre, and we don't get anyone close enough to him to be able to pick up them second balls. Muani is our only hope. He can pick up that ball. Same with Kudus, pick up that ball and literally get us free kicks, win us throw-ins to get up the pitch and relieve a bit of pressure. Muani has to start if he is any way available. If Frank doesn't start him and is trying to protect him, I'm not with that. He's got to show some bollocks here and play him.
And then talking about maybe creativity, which will be needed for this game. Despite being fourth in the Premier League, Jack, Spurs have had some of the most goals in the league, and also have one of the best shot conversion rates. But Spurs have been outperforming their XG by a heavy amount, by nearly 8 goals. In fact, it's the biggest overperformance of XG to goals scored in the league. We also, as you maybe know, we're ranking very, very low when it comes to through balls. I think we're at the bottom of the table when it comes to that. Only 2 teams as well have taken fewer shots or created fewer chances than Spurs this season. Is the lack of creativity a tactical issue, or simply just a consequence of, the new players adapting and maybe not having a ton of players available?
I'd argue it's definitely tactical. Now, in fairness, he's improved the defense, so you by taking less risk going forward, you're less likely to concede. Like I'm not expecting to play Ange ball. Ange had probably actually a worse front line last season with I think Kudus is better than the Son we saw last season. So I think maybe he has a slightly better front line. But yeah, I think it is tactical, and it will take time to get the attack right. But I think he does need to adapt to it a bit. I think sometimes we need to be a bit more adventurous. I think against Copenhagen, we saw it, obviously, especially when we had the 10 men, we actually just went for it and killed them off. I think there's a lot of teams like Wolves this season. I think we could have killed them if we just went for the game a bit. I think we were afraid to lose the game at home, probably the worst side in the league. I think that was the kind of blatantly obvious game where it was like, this is not going to work if he keeps going like this. But yeah, I think he's by Christmas, if he hasn't sort of improved it a little bit, I'll start to get a bit worried. But I've seen some slightly more promising signs. I think the United game was better than the Chelsea game, especially that last 15 minutes. I think games prior to that, like Bournemouth, I thought we looked lost the last 15 minutes of the game. Chelsea, you wouldn't even know we were behind in the game. So I think the United game, the fact that we could chase the game a little bit, I think was promising, but there's obviously a lot of issues still to iron out going forward. But as you spoke about earlier, someone like Semenyo just gives you an extra avenue of attack and something a bit different and a bit of a spark. So I think got kind of a mix of personnel and tactics, and Solanke as well coming back, that'd be huge as well.
I wonder if also just the XG overperformance really has a lot to do with just how lethal we have been from set pieces, because I'm pretty sure with a set piece, right, it's not really that high on the XG scale, really, because you're not expecting to score as often as we have, maybe even like Arsenal too, from these sort of set pieces. But Colin, I mean, is it down to Thomas Frank to sort this out? Because it is worrying, right, to see us being the biggest overperformers in the league.
Well, I think that's one of the things he was famous for in Bournemouth, and some of the players, not Bournemouth, Brentford, sorry, that he I remember seeing an interview with one of his former players talking about when to shoot and when not to shoot, increasing your chance, your probability of scoring. So I'm not surprised to see us outperform our XG. I do think, as you correctly point out, the set piece success has played a part in that. So it is him that's bringing that level of performance or overperformance to us, because I do think he coaches the players very well. It'll be interesting to see if we can maintain that, and it'll also be interesting to see if we can improve it as players start to come back. But at the moment, I'm kind of not surprised, because I did expect that when he was appointed. That would be one of the key things, that you don't shoot unless you've got a high probability of scoring.
Yeah. I'm doing some quick research here, Dave. I really like this XG conversation. Last season, his Brentford side, they had the 4th highest, goals minus expected goals. So they were the 4th best overperformers of their XG. They did, though, have a higher XG than what we had last season. So they did create more chances than Spurs did last season. But is this tactical for you, or is this just down to players adapting, players not being available?
I give him some leeway when it comes to, some new players maybe acclimatizing, adjusting to tactics and stuff. And I give him some leeway in terms of injuries, the loss of Madison, Kulizeski, not replacing Sonny and that, Solanke as well. The goals that they contributed last year isn't helping the situation. Granted, and I sort of give him a bit of leeway when it comes to that, if I want to be fair. However, he's made 16 different rotation, or let me get the stat here. He's used 16 different attacking combinations in 18 matches.
Yeah.
Now some of that is forced through injuries, but a lot of that is just he's chosen to rotate. It's been a common theme all season long. And by doing that, you're failing to allow the players to build up that chemistry, the patterns of play, the understanding of each other's game. And that's why it leads to the stat of how many we've made the most mistakes that have led to goals scored on us. And that comes through that, the over rotation, and something that I've tried to highlight all season long, and especially earlier on in the season, at some point he has to stick to a consistent sort of front line. Now, also, when you look at the most creative side of our team, and this is statistically, by the way, our right-hand side is the most creative. Kudus has created the most chances, 15 chances, and Porro's created the most with 13. No, I'm sorry, but the fact that we're not creating through the middle or down the left-hand side has partly to do with Thomas Frank over-rotating all the time. But also the fact that let me get up the numbers here. We are 18th in the league for shots. We're 17th in the league for chances created. And we're 20th in the league in terms of through balls completed. A lot of that is down to tactics. He is over-reliant on set pieces, and we knew that from preseason. But we were told that the rest would follow. But what we're not seeing is the rest follow, and we're still overly reliant on set pieces. And as we've seen against Chelsea, if the goalkeeper comes out and claims the ball, which Raya will do at the weekend, we become very ineffective in games in terms of being able to break teams down. And I've always said, you can't just rely on set pieces. At some point, it's going to come back to haunt you. Same with Arsenal. You have to be able to score goals from open play. And that is where we lack massively. And, you even take into account Xavi Simons' numbers here so far. And there's a fair argument to say, yeah, there's a part of it, him acclimatizing to the Premier League. But how much is it of Frank misusing them and not getting the best out of them, or setting up to get the best out of them? He's played 14 games. He's had one shot on target. He's assisted 2 and only created 20 chances. I mean, this is a guy that came to Tottenham with a lot of talent. Chelsea were after him and stuff like that. So, I think there's a fair argument to say, is the tactics on the pitch too defensive and doesn't get the best out of our forward players, which we are going to need. We do need to have a different avenue of scoring goals. It's not all down to the quality of player in terms of Richarlison or Johnson. And I made this point, a couple of weeks ago. Despite their limitations, I feel like Ange Postecoglou got more out of them too than what Thomas Frank is getting. And I do think a lot of it is down to tactics. At Brentford, a lot of his game was based around set pieces, throw-ins, playing direct into Ivan Toney for years and stuff like that. He has to change that up at Tottenham. And I think that's an area where he is really, really struggling. It's an area he needs to get to grips with quickly and sort out. He has been allowed to bring in a coaching team with him, so it should be very easy to sort out. But I think his biggest problem is he needs to identify what 4 he trusts and put them out there on a regular basis.
Does anyone else see this as just a general warning sign, or is this something that you see Frank eventually fixing? I think Dave is spot on that probably a huge part of this does have to do with just the constant changing of that forward line. We need to build some type of chemistry.
I think kind of Man City's a good example, though. Like, Pep's known for how much he rotates, and it's not really an issue. I guess getting maybe small relationships out in the pitch. I think Xavi, Adebayor, and Udogie, we all know, have a pretty good relationship of linking up play. I think if you can get them linking up, it doesn't have to be the same front 4, but if you get them 3 on the pitch at the same time, we saw even without Kudus against United in the second half, we were actually able to create a few chances without him. So I think if you want to give Kudus a rest, maybe you get the 3 of them on the pitch at the same time. And then if maybe Udogie's out injured, you have to make sure Kudus plays then. So I think it's maybe more relationships around the pitch than in the front 4. Now, obviously, you're going to have your front 4 that's going to be your go-to front 4. But I think rotation, I think we talked about it last week, that maybe that's one of the reasons for our injury crisis is over-reliance on maybe 3 or 4 players. Like Kulusevski, I think, is the prime example where we ran him into the ground last season and we haven't seen him now in 6 months. So I think you do have to kind of be careful with it as well. Kudus as well, he didn't get a rest, and now he's ended up missing about 3 matches. So I think it's about striking the right balance, but not maybe going too far one way or the other.
My problem with the rotation, though, just quickly, is that it used to be game specific. You know, I feel like I can rotate in this game and get away with it. Thomas Frank is just doing it regardless of the opposition. And that's where I worry. Like, you know, off the back of the Copenhagen game, the fact that he again changed it up going into Man United, didn't start Udebert, didn't start Destiny Adogi and stuff like that. That's where he is really not helping the situation. You know, sometimes you have to build off confidence and keep putting these guys out there. Like, there's a massive thing in football now that you have to rotate every single game. It's a cool thing to do. It's the you know, the woke thing to do in football or whatever it is. Like, you know, the game's gone. It used to be game specific, and I don't understand why Frank can't understand that.
Yeah, I think he got it wrong against United anyway, definitely. And he came out afterwards and said, no, it wasn't related to the two of them coming back from injury. It was tactical, which is kind of concerned that he thought Spence and Richarlison was a better left-hand side to have than Udogie and Adebayor after seeing the Copenhagen game.
But for me, I think I'll reserve judgment until the end of the season, because I think, you know, we're only however many weeks and however many games into the beginning of this. I do agree with the sentiment. It feels like he's over-rotating for the sake of rotating, but he could look like a genius come May. You know, potentially. So I think in the round was at the moment you feel frustration, and it's your right to feel frustrated. We all want success and we want it right now. The pragmatist in me says, let's wait and see at the end of the season, was that the right thing or was that the wrong thing? Because right now it's difficult to judge it in its totality. But it is a source of frustration. I'm kind of with you there, Dave. You feel like the relationships aren't being forged. You feel like the experience you want to give to the players isn't being afforded to them via the minutes that they should be on the pitch. So a lot of it adds up to frustration at the moment. But before I draw a line under that conversation, I think I'll wait until the season is closed and then reflect on it and decide whether or not Frank did do it correctly or whether he was overdoing it.
Oh, you're on mute, Jacko.
Back on this one, the way Spurs approached the Chelsea-Manchester United game did frustrate some fans. Should Frank maybe look to take the handbrake off, perhaps go at it a bit more aggressive, or should he stick to this pragmatic approach, you know, for these high-stakes games?
That's for me, Jack, yeah? Okay, yeah. No, it's handbrake off. Well, that's why we're Spurs fans. I didn't. Well, I mean, you know, falling in love as a Spurs fan with Spurs as you're a bit older is because of the handbrake off football that you'd expect to see, and why I was such a big Ange Postecoglou fan, even though it ended badly in the league. I did enjoy watching us when we were in full flow. It was very, very enjoyable. I think we are, and it showed in Copenhagen. Again, respect to the opposition there. You can only play what's in front of you. We are better when we're on the front foot. There's no doubt about it in my mind. I don't know what's happening to us at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Difficult one to explain, but when we're on the road and we're having a go, it just feels different. So yeah, it's handbrake off for me, and to be honest with you, I'll probably get shot for this, but I'm not expecting to win that game, right? The reality is that we're a very short period into our process with Frank. We're on the back of a squad that has been, you know, pieced together by Daniel Levy. It is a good squad, as we've acknowledged, but it could be better and probably should be better. Whereas those guys, they're at home. They're 7 years into Arteta now, is it? Or 6 or 7 years?
7.
With an ambitious board. They didn't mess around. They went out and they spent the big money, and they spend the big money every single window. And their ambition is clearly to win the league. Okay? We're going in on the back of however many games with Frank and however many weeks with Frank, with a team that's decimated by injury. So we have nothing to lose. So if Ireland and Troy Parrott have shown us anything, football can deliver miracles, but I'm not expecting one, because I just think there are too many things against us. So therefore, why not have a go? go down in glorious flames rather than sitting there and just waiting for the knockout punch to come. That will drive me insane if we're just sitting there waiting for the inevitable set piece to take us out of the game and break our hearts and ruin my Sunday evening. So go for it. Just absolutely go for it. There's no reason not to. It's not a knockout competition. It's 3 points. It's 1 point or no points. You know what I mean? Let's absolutely go for it.
It's hard to say, Jack, which one will work, right? Because in the past, when we did go for it under Ange against Arsenal, we got absolutely tonked, a few times. But also, perhaps, it is the way to go about it, because maybe that's not what they're expecting under Frank. Maybe they wouldn't expect us to really go for them and we could catch them off guard. So what would be the way that you would like to see Spurs play? A bit more aggressive or pragmatic?
For the Arsenal game, I think maybe don't go too far away from it, because I know sometimes when managers try to change things too quickly for one game, it can be kind of a complete disaster. One of the games that I'll always think of where a manager really tried to change things was under Jose against Everton. We were given out that he wasn't attacking enough, and we ended up losing 5-4, and it was nearly comedic the way the game went. So I think I don't mind us maybe being a bit pragmatic in the first half. If we go behind, though, we have to go for it. It can't be like the Chelsea game where we just kind of keep sitting back and going, oh, well, we'll get a chance at some point. I think it's about reacting to the opposition that's in front of you, the situation in the game. It's like, it looks like no matter what the score is, the way we're playing, we just play the same way until maybe it gets to the last 15, 20 minutes. He just throws on 4 forwards and just hopes that we'll score a goal. I think just seeing sort of the adaptations that he showed at Brentford, I know he had kind of 5-6 days to prepare for games there, whereas now he only has 2-3 days, probably 1 day on the training pitch between games. But I think it's about if we can come out there with the 0-0 draw with having 3 shots the whole game, I'm not going to complain on Sunday. But going forward, it will have to have some sort of adaptation, especially when we're going behind in games.
Yeah, I'm kind of a little bit split, Dave, because I just can't really say which one does work, going for them or going a bit pragmatic, because I think when we have gone for them in the past, we've been absolutely destroyed because they just, saw through us. And then there are times when we have been a bit more pragmatic and that also hasn't worked. So what do you think?
Yeah, look, obviously I'd like us to go for the jugular, but I don't think we have the team to go for the jugular against Arsenal. Look, I think you have to understand the game. I think, like I said earlier on, I think for the first 30 minutes, they're going to throw everything at us, which means naturally you're on the back foot. I think being aggressive and going for them, I think, is by picking the right personnel, players that can stand up to that environment, not picking, physically weak players. You're going to have to defend for your lives. But I think where we could get at them is just completely bypass the midfield, go long, play 2 up front, and see if we get a handle of it like we did against PSG. And I think also with that, then you can also sort of try and push up as a unit as well and try and get a bit more pressure on them. So I think for me, it's about just picking the right personnel. For instance, we discussed it yesterday, I think dropping Pedro Porro for this sort of game. Physically, he's not up for it. 1v1, he's going to call for help. He's going to set the panic alarms. It's going to create panic around them. People have to then come out and help him, which then creates spots for them to be able to play the ball into and stuff like that. It's a knock-on effect. I don't think you can play Brennan Johnson. You are going to have to play players in the forward line that can hold up that ball and relieve a bit of pressure. But I think mainly, I'd just like to see us go long and direct. Their midfield is their biggest asset. They're dangerous in possession, but also they're physical when we're in possession. So bypass that, hit long balls into the channel, and then let's go at them from that way.
Yeah.
Get ourselves into their half. I just think, it's just about picking the right lineup and then going long ball against them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm
Dave for manager.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the long ball, and I'm also a big fan of potentially changing up the lineup a bit more than we might expect. I think it's important to have more defensive-minded players for this game, especially in the back line. I think Pedro Porro might be more of a hindrance than really a help for this game, especially
just a quick point on Porro. I feel like if you're going for the long balls, there's no better player in our team than Porro at clipping a ball 50 yards exactly where he wants it. So I think maybe you're saying defensively off the ball, he might not be what you want in that sort of game. But if you're on long balls, if you want one clipped up to Richarlison or Kudus or whoever's playing up that end of the pitch, I think Porro maybe is that guy. I don't know how consistent Spence's ability to hit a 50-yard pass where you want it. He might be under or over hitting them. So it might be kind of one of those things you try and fix one thing and end up breaking another, because that relationship between Porro and Kudus has been quite strong this season.
Mm.
Are you pro Porro then for this game? Would you leave Spence on the bench?
If you go 3 at the back, I'd go Spence to get up and down. But if we're going 4 at the back, I think I'd probably go Porro. I wouldn't fear Arsenal's left-hand side too much. If it's Eze or Martinelli or Trossard, I wouldn't. It's not Doku or someone like that going up against them that's going to rip them to shreds. I think I'd be more worried about Saka on the other side against Udogie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe we can talk about the occasion in general. Now, Colin, Michael Oliver will be the referee for this North London derby. Arsenal fans believe he's their arch nemesis, while also forgetting that last time out, he refereed the North London derby. He denied us 2 clear penalties for Kulusevski and Ben Davis, and then also had a perfectly legal goal, it looked like, from Van de Ven that was also deemed offside. And even though I think it took like 10 deflections off of Arsenal players, for some reason, they didn't allow it. Is he perhaps actually the perfect referee for this game since he's been terrible for both teams?
perhaps, but there's only a few characters in the Premier League that I've ever had an irrational dislike for. I'll give you one example. One of them was John Terry. He used to just make my skin crawl just looking at the man. I hate to. I never met him, but it just drove me wild.
You're a good judge of character, then, Colin.
The other one is that ref. My goodness me, I am a kind and caring and patient man, but he just brings out the worst of me. I can't even bear looking at him when he's on the screen. And when I saw he was our ref for this game, I was just it feels like we're 1-0 down already, or it feels like a genuine worldly goal from halfway that soars into the top right-hand corner is going to be given offside because the wind was blowing the wrong way or something. It just brings out the worst in me. I can't bear the man. So it feels awful. It just feels awful. I was so disappointed when I saw that he was our ref. I just really was. It put me emotionally on the back foot. I hope it doesn't do the same to our team.
Yeah, I think he's probably up there with the most hated referees, and looks like Arsenal fans are also maybe not too happy with him being the referee for this game, which gives me some sort of solace. I mean, Jack, do you have any disdain for Michael Oliver? Were you also a bit let down when you saw that he's on the sheet?
To be honest, I think his reputation is more so just when you think of referees in the Premier League, you think of Michael Oliver. I think having that kind of noticeable face, it was Mike Dean before him and Howard Webb before him. I think whoever's kind of the poster boy for the referees, he's probably considered the top referee internally in the Premier League. So I think it's probably just that he's the face of the referees. So maybe for all the bad decisions that build up, maybe Michael Oliver gets the blame for it. I think most of them probably aren't of standard you'd expect. So I don't think that's going to be something I'm too worried about. I don't expect too much from the referees regardless. So yeah, if they give us a decision, I'll take it. But if it goes against us, I think it's not a surprise either.
Yeah. Usually if you're in the more high profile games, those are then the bad decisions that people will remember. But Dave, I mean, I know you usually don't have too many favorites of referees. Are you also a bit let down that Michael Oliver is refereeing this game? Or do you kind of see where I'm coming from? Maybe he might be just terrible for both teams.
Yeah, I fully understand. Look, I didn't like referees when I was playing, to be honest with you. I always had something to say in their ear. But look, when it comes to Michael Oliver, I just feel like anytime he's referee Tottenham, we never seem to get there fair over the green. And I know Arsenal fans have been sort of crying and complaining, that he's booked, because it is statistically proven. He has booked their players the most, but he's also refereed them in the most games. But we're not too far behind him, and he's refereed us in far less games, by the way. He's given us 90 yellow cards and 5 red cards in 52 games that he's managed us, which shows he absolutely loves booking Tottenham players. And I feel like anytime he's in charge, things just go wrong. Because I know people say referees don't have too much of an influence on the game, but they do. If they're constantly neglecting stuff, challenges made on you and stuff like that, and giving them to the opposition, it can sway, the game in their favor and stuff like that. And also, you go back to the North London derby where we were 3-0 down. I think he missed 2 penalties that should have been clearly been given. Disallowed, didn't give a Mickey Van de Ven goal. So, he hasn't been good for Tottenham in that regard. He hasn't helped us in terms of his decision making and stuff like that. So, but here's a bit of golden information for you. Michael Oliver did fly out a couple of years ago out to Saudi Arabia to referee a game. He was paid very handsomely, and he's flown out in first class and put up in a nice hotel. Guess what Premier League owner's done that? Man City's, and Man City
I
are
think it was
chasing Arsenal.
in Qatar. I think he was flown out for a Qatari game, wasn't
Well,
it?
Qatar, something like that, but it was the
Yeah.
Man City owners that
Yeah, they're Qatari owned.
that done that and paid them, and it was all legitimate at the time, by the way. Since then, PGMOL have stopped it because it does open you up to corruption and bribery and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But Man City are also chasing Arsenal, so you know, if the Man City owners get on the blower and say, "Look, Michael Oliver, we paid you like 20 grand for one game. You owe us a little favor. Call it in for this game and help us out a little."
Yeah, I could see that. Or maybe it's actually it might be Abu Dhabi that they're owned by. But yeah, I know that story that he was flown in for specifically a Man City owned club's game to referee, which is definitely dodgy. But knowing these referees, I'm not too surprised with the recent news this year. You know, with the Turkish referees gambling and everything, it seems like they're not the most trustful of bunches.
I thought you're talking about Klopp's friend.
Yeah, well, yeah, that as well. You know, with a bit of sarcasm. Yeah. Let's talk quickly about the unbeaten away record that Spurs still have in the Premier League as well as Europe. We're facing, though, the toughest tests with Arsenal on Sunday, Jack, and also PSG on Wednesday. Do you have any confidence that Spurs can remain undefeated away from home?
I'd consider it quite unlikely, to be honest. Just don't lose to Arsenal, and I'll live with whatever happens against PSG. If we lose 5-0 to PSG, but we get a result against Arsenal, I'll move on from it fairly quickly. But Sunday's a big one. Just don't lose. But yeah, I'm not too confident. I don't want to say too much, but I've nothing too positive to say. I'm not overly confident going into this week.
If we can hold on to any of the luck that we had against Bodo Glimt, Monaco, Colin, maybe we can stay undefeated in the away sense this season. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be the biggest test yet, right, to the away record.
This is head and heart situation. The head says, I can't even bring myself to say the words. My head says we lose both of these, but my heart wishes that we don't. I do think we're capable of a draw. I think a win at Arsenal might be just too much, but I hope I'm wrong. And I think, I think we'll have a very tough time against PSG. Now they're in, not in top gear, but they're in a better gear than they were when we met them in the Super Cup. So, I'm not optimistic. I'm sorry to say. I think the O is going to have to go.
Eventually will be broken, you would think, at some point. But
yeah,
Dave, that's what I'm clinging on to is perhaps, we can hold on to those lucky results that we had against some of the teams in these away fixtures where, for whatever reason, we were able to hold on and actually salvage a point. And if we were to get a point from both of these games, that would be quite brilliant. But biggest test yet, right, to our stability away from home, I guess.
Yeah, it's a huge test, but look, we did beat Man City away from home, so we have shown the ability to be able to take results against some of the bigger teams. And look, like I said, just take a leaf out of Ireland's book. We climbed Everest there over the last international break, and there's no reason why these Tottenham players can't do it either. And I think if we can, remain unbeaten coming out of these two games, I think it'll be absolutely unbelievable in terms of momentum, togetherness, and everything else in terms of really kicking on from there. But likewise, I think if you suffer two very heavy defeats, all of a sudden you're staring down the barrel of another sort of, disjointed and dismal season to a certain degree. So I think it's huge, really, in terms of momentum just inside the camp. Really, look, doesn't really matter about my opinion, but it will dictate the momentum inside the camp, and that's what will dictate how we kick on from these sort of two games. I'd love to remain unbeaten. You know me, Jack. I'd love to, whip Arsenal with it and PSG with that fact. But it's going to be difficult, but it's not impossible.
It would be a huge boost, you would imagine, to the squad if they were to pick up some sort of result from any of these games. Really, the next two, I think it would definitely go a long way with this team and just their confidence sake. But we only have so much time left since Colin has to go. So Colin, probably a good one to end off with for you. What's your favorite North London derby memory?
That one we mentioned earlier, that was against Arsenal, wasn't it? The back heel from Dele Alli and Harry Kane whipping it in and ripping off the mask.
Yeah.
Was that against Arsenal? I'm nearly sure it was.
Yeah,
that has
two all at the line.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the old. You can't beat that one. Just a ball going out of play, everyone's kind of given up, and Dele Alli just doesn't want to give it up, chases it down. A very inventive back heel and an incredible finish and an iconic celebration. I haven't seen anything to beat that in all the years since, in my opinion, other than the ghost goal in the European Cup final. But that was an incredibly iconic moment for me, and one that'll stick with me for the rest of my days, because I was a huge Harry Kane fan, heartbroken when he left. But if I think of Harry Kane, I see that face, I see him ripping it off, I see him running, I see him sliding, and that beautiful angle they have of it from behind the goal where you can actually see it curl into the net. Just incredible, just incredible.
Yeah, it's a shame that did end up 2-2. That's one of the big asterisks, about that goal, is right, is that we all thought it was going to be, for, I believe, a winner, right? But it ended up not playing out that way, of course. For you, Jack, what's the best memory that you can think of for North London?
I'll just avoid saying the same as Colin, because that would have been my number one. I think that'd be most people's number one. I remember exactly where I was. I was in the number 8 bar beside the stadium watching. I didn't have a ticket for the game, and the place went absolutely mental. Chance of we're going to win the league, and obviously that didn't happen in the end. But no, I think probably either the season before, where Kane scored the 2 goals against them. I think Bentaleb put a cross in from 90th minute, headed into the top corner. I think that was definitely up there to beat Arsenal at home. And then the 3-0 under Conte, which I can see in Dave's background there, is that's one of my favourite overall Tottenham memories. Definitely in league games, that's probably my favourite ever league game. So I think I'll put the 3-0 top of the list. And Everton Royale holding the flare.
Yeah, it's iconic.
Iconic, yeah.
Yeah, look, for me, it would be David Bentley's goal. I mean, that was absolutely unbelievable. It was out of nowhere as well. It's just sheer genius. I think Gareth Bale scored a double at the Emirates, or at Arsenal as well. That was a good night. My most favourite one, though, is Harry Kane's goal, with the mask. I absolutely love that one. And it's the sheer quality of it, the way he picks up the ball in the corner flag, comes in, the angle of it, and, the execution is absolutely unbelievable. And then as Jack mentions as well, the one under Conte, but the one under Conte, it's just the whole day, the build up, the flares outside, the intimidation, with the team bus and stuff like that, carrying it over into the stadium and stuff like that. The noise really riled them that evening. That one will for always go down in folklore.
Yeah, I think the league game under Conte might be my favorite, just for, like you said there, just the build up to the game, the importance of it as well. Of course, it's always an important game, North London Derby, but just knowing what was at stake in terms of top 4, and also as well, it really was a huge setback. I felt like, too, the confidence of maybe fans in Arteta and just sort of the growing evolution of that Arsenal team. Felt like we maybe set them back a year or two with that win. So
they were rattled, properly rattled.
Yeah.
The League Cup as well, where we beat them 5-1 at home. That was around Danny Rose's rocket. That was unbelievable. And was this the last fixture we had? The Yunus Kabul winner? Was that a winner?
Yeah, that was at the Emirates. That was the last win we had at the Emirates in the league. We beat them 2-0 at the Emirates in the Cup as well under Pochettino. The year where Delhi did
that was the best goal actually for me. I know the Harry Kane mask one is iconic. Yeah. I actually thought that goal was almost better because it just the pass from Harry Kane over the top and then the finish from Dele Alli and just
that was the flick, wasn't it? The flick over the keeper. Yeah,
it's one of the best goals I've seen.
Yeah,
so natural.
Yeah. There's something special though about goals at the Emirates, because you see that away end just erupt whatever way it looks. It looks so good. I remember Sonny's goal on his second goal under Ange, where Maddison picked, I think it was Rice's pocket. I think he tackled him, and you just see the away end just erupt. There's something about the aesthetic of just seeing the away fans and the home fans just sitting there in silence, shell shocked. I think that's one of those things that just gives you such enjoyment, and I'd love to see a bit of that on Sunday.
Yeah. Both of those players are huge misses for this game. Sonny scored some pretty incredible goals against Arsenal in the past. I think that one under lockdown might be also one of the best ones ever, if only there were fans in the stadium for that absolute curler. And then you're right to mention Maddison. I think Maddison in that away performance under Ange in his first 10 games. Remember, Maddison had an unbelievable game that day against Arsenal. He would be a huge help for this, but fortunately, we're going to have to make do with what we have here. But I don't want to make Colin too late, so I think we'll wrap on up and get out of here. We really appreciate you guys. Thanks for being here with us. Smash the like button, of course, on the way out. We'll see you tomorrow for some more content ahead of the North London Derby, and of course, see you this weekend as well. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.